What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Criterion Corner. This is the segment on my channel where I pick a film from the Criterion collection or streaming on the Criterion channel and talk about it in great detail. And I'm very excited for the movie I'm going to be discussing today because it is from director Wong Kar-wai. And I recently watched my very first ever Wong Kar-wai film, In the Mood for Love, and it immediately became one of my favorite films of all time. I think Wong is such an incredibly talented director. That movie just shows romantic love in a way that is unlike any film I've ever seen before, and that longing for love and that desire for passion, and in a way that is so subdued and quiet. The use of music is incredible, the cinematography is phenomenal, and I've really been itching to watch another one of his movies. And this film I'm going to be discussing today is another one of his really critically acclaimed movies that it seems like a lot of people truly love. And I was really excited to watch it. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Chungking Express. Chungking Express is directed by Wong Kar-wai. Two melancholic Hong Kong policemen fall in love, one with a mysterious underworld figure, the other with a beautiful and ethereal server at a late night restaurant he frequents. So I was very excited to watch this movie because, as I said, In the Mood for Love immediately became one of my favorite movies I've ever watched. Just truly a remarkable film. And I have conflicting feelings about this movie. I do think it's a really great film. I really enjoyed myself, but I think it's incredibly disjointed. If you're unfamiliar with Chungking Express and you've never seen it before, there are two stories in this movie that hard cut at about the midway point of the film. And I think the first story is kind of a mess. There are moments in it I really appreciated. There were elements of dialogue I really liked, but I didn't find it really emotionally resonating with me or sticking with me in a way I found satisfying. And as soon as the second story kicked in, it's pure perfection. The entire second half of this movie is remarkable. It is exactly what I want from Wong Kar-wai, but because it's so disjointed, it's not a perfect film, but it's still an incredibly enjoyable experience that I'm looking forward to talking about with you today. At the beginning of the film, for our first story, we're introduced to this cop who has recently been dumped by his girlfriend May, and he was dumped by her on April 1st, and he believes that it is an April Fool's joke. And we get these long sequences of him calling literally every person that he knows on the phone, trying to find some kind of connection or trying to get a date. And it's shot in typical Wong Kar-wai fashion. There's really unique cinematographical choices. The color is beautiful. It's shot in a really interesting way. And at the same time, we're introduced to this woman in a blonde wig who is running this crime syndicate. She's smuggling drugs or something on a plane where she's gotten all these people together, and her operation is botched. And the two of them end up meeting, and we get to see this one evening with these two characters. In the second story, we get introduced to a different police officer who is going through a breakup with a flight attendant that he was dating, and he's really struggling with it, and he's incredibly depressed by it. He goes to the snack shop every single night and gets food for his girlfriend, and he stops getting the food and he starts just getting himself black coffee. And there's a young woman who works there, Faye, who takes an interest with him immediately, and the two of them have conversations, but it's mostly just her kind of seeing where his life is going. And there's an interesting set of circumstances surrounding the two of their relationship. So as I said, I found this movie to be incredibly disjointed, but it is still very enjoyable. For starters, I think all of the performances in this are really great, especially the actors in the tail end of it in the second half. They are so easy to watch. They're entertaining, their performances are incredible, and I really just loved every second they were on screen. The actors in the first act also do a really great job with the material that they are given. The cinematography in this piece, as per Wong Kar-wai's usual, is just remarkable. Truly just remarkable cinematography. Wong Kar-wai uses all these really unique experimental filmmaking techniques that are just unlike anything I've ever seen before. The way he speeds up and slows down time in his movies, and I think it makes for almost like a storybook viewing experience. You're watching this movie and it's being told in a way that doesn't necessarily feel completely and totally realistic. And that's what makes it so engaging and immersive. The color palettes in his film are so unique. It's difficult to really compare it to anything else because it is so uniquely him. I love the musical choices in his movies. California Dreamin', that song plays a huge part in this movie, and I love the musical choices in this film. I think it accompanies it really well, and it has a very noir-esque style, which is something I can also appreciate. As I said, I think your enjoyment to this movie is going to be very dependent on how you feel about the two stories. The first story, I feel like you don't really get enough about the characters to care about them all that much, and the cop in the first story is really just kind of a whiny, annoying human. And so as I was watching him make these phone calls, I just found myself having a really hard time being invested in anything that he was doing. And then the woman in the blonde wig is incredibly interesting, like what's going on in her story. But when the two of them meet, they have some really great conversational moments. I felt like the end of their situation and the end of that storyline was just kind of unsatisfying. There's nothing about it that really would make me pull myself in to watch that again. I feel like if I turned on this movie, I would immediately jump to the second story because the first story was so unsatisfying, despite a couple of moments I found charming and funny. But as soon as you get into the second story, Faye's character is just so immediately likable in her absurdity and just the way she delivers dialogue, and taking a fascination into this cop's life and really kind of overstepping her bounds in a way that is really comedic, and how she sees this guy struggling and it feels like all she wants to do is help this guy get out of his rut. And it's really fun to watch, and it's very charming and engaging, and it has a lot of the elements that I really enjoyed about In the Mood for Love. In the Mood for Love is a much more serious film. I feel like it takes itself a lot more seriously and it's much more dramatic, where this movie gets a lot more playful despite having dramatic undertones. And I really just love the setting of this movie and how these characters in the second half interact. I just found them to be so charming, and I thought the ending was incredible. I really loved the way this movie wrapped up, and I appreciated a lot about it. I unfortunately just wish the first half didn't exist and they focused more on these characters, or that there was something more satisfying about the first half of the movie to make this a perfect viewing experience. But instead, I just found myself underwhelmed in that first 30-minute period, where I feel like you could have just made an hour and 20-minute movie about these other characters to make it a completely satisfying piece. But despite me not liking the first part of this movie as much, I 100% think this movie is worth watching. I think Wong Kar-wai is an incredibly talented director, and I would urge you to check it out because this is a great film in Criterion's catalog. So have you seen Chungking Express? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly entertaining. Despite the flaws of the first act, I really feel like this movie is worth watching, and I'm excited to watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.